Auctions or buy it nows? Which type of eBay listings will give you the greatest profits as a seller, and which types will help you find the best deals as a buyer? Well, today I'm going to share my thoughts, and we're going to get started off by talking about which types of listings will get you the greatest profits as a seller. So, in general, you can make the greatest profits through buy it now listings. And this is because buy it now listings let you leave the item on the market for a longer period of time, which means it can be exposed to a greater number of buyers, and a larger number of buyers always means a greater potential for profit. So, in other words, if I put an item up for auction that ends in a week, maybe 10 people see that item and are able to bid on it. But if I leave it up for weeks or even months through Buy It Now, then after the first week, maybe I've had 10 people look at it. The second week, I have another 10. And the third week, I have another 10. So by that point, I've had 30 people looking at the item. And finally, someone comes along who's willing to pay the price that I'm looking for, which means that my profit ends up being greater. But not only do buy it now listings lead to a greater pool of potential buyers because of the increased time the item is left on the market, but also because there's not an insignificant amount of buyers who simply won't fool with auctions for three different reasons. First of all, there are many buyers who simply don't want to invest the time it takes to win a book through an auction because maybe there's a certain book that they want, but it's going to take 5 or 10 auctions before they finally are able to get that book. And a lot of people don't want to take that time. Number two, a lot of people don't want to go on the emotional roller coaster that comes from participating in auctions. Because, of course, it's always a great thrill when you win an auction, but you get a serious case of the feel bads when you lose one. And so a lot of people don't want to go up and down on that journey. And third of all, there's a lot of buyers who just want to get that book now. And they don't want to have to wait for 5 days to see, well, maybe I got that book. No, they want it now. And so by using buy it now listings, you're able to add that pool of buyers who avoid auctions to your potential buyer list, which of course, again, will increase your potential profit. However, there are times where auctions can be more profitable, and this is especially when you have the opportunity to reinvest any profit you make into new inventory that you can sell again. And so, by having an increased number of books that you sell, you end up in the long term with a greater amount of profit. So, for example, let's say there's a book that I can buy for $10, and I feel pretty good that if I leave it on the market for a month, I'll end up being able to sell it to someone for $30. But that same book, I realize if I put it up for auction for only a week, that I'll probably only get $20 for it. Well, on the surface, it seems like a no-brainer that I then put it up for buy it now because I would get a $20 profit versus a $10 profit. But if I have the opportunity to take the $10 I make in that first auction and buy two more of those books for $10 that then I'm able to sell for $20 a week later, then all of a sudden I've made $40. And then if I invest that into four more books that I sell and get $80, and then buy eight more books that I can then sell for $160, well, then all of a sudden, after a month, I have a $150 profit from all those auctions versus the $20 profit I only had by selling the one book through a buy it now listing. And so, of course, that means there's a huge potential to make a much larger amount of profit if you're able to acquire a lot of inventory. Now, of course, the profit margin needs to be large enough where it makes sense for the time that you have to invest to ship off all this increased inventory. If I were only going to make two more dollars by shipping off 10 more books, it wouldn't be worth my time to do that. But in the example I mentioned, you're literally making over $100 more profit. And so, of course, that makes it worth the time. Another scenario where an auction can be more profitable than a buy it now is if you have reason to believe that whatever item you're listing is going to experience a decrease in its fair market value in the near future. And so you realize, hey, if this book sits for 2 or 3 months, I'm not going to be able to get what I could make through an auction in a week. And so that time crunch means that it might be better to put that listing up as an auction. I'll give you an example of how I did this a year ago. So in 2021, I bought 10 copies of the first solo series of Kate Bishop, and I sold 8 of those for a nice profit before the Hawkeye series came out on Disney Plus. But while the show was still going on, I still had 2 copies that had remained unsold. And so then I put them up as an auction because I knew, hey, in a month, 2 months, 3 months, these books are going to be worth nearly as much as they are now. And there's certain things I did and that you can do to can protect yourself from, listing something for 99 cents and it get one bid and then all of a sudden you've lost a lot. So I set a pretty high floor for a minimum bid, something I was pretty sure that somebody would pay within the week, but that I thought would be more than I could get by leaving it up for a buy it now 2 or 3 months down the road. And then also, you can still give people the option to still buy it now, even though you've put it up for an auction. And so I ended up selling both of those books. The first one, somebody put in the minimum bid, and then there were several other bids. And so I got close to my buy it now price. And then the second one, somebody actually went and bought it now because sometimes that deadline, people realize, hey, I can't sit on this book if I want it. I need to get it now because it's going to be gone on Sunday. And so that can actually work to your advantage in that scenario. Now, what type of listing will help you find better deals as a buyer? Well, on the one hand, auctions can provide a great potential for an incredible value because, once again, the time limit on an auction means there's a smaller pool of buyers. And whenever there's a smaller pool of buyers, that means the price of the item is going to be depressed. Because maybe there's someone out there who's willing to pay $50 for a book that I want to pay $40 for, but they might not see it that week. Maybe they would see it if that book was up week 2 or week 3, but they don't see it in that first week. And so that book will often go for a lower value than it would as a buy it now. However, as a general rule, I personally only look for buy it now listings because I am the type of person I mentioned earlier who doesn't want to invest a lot of time in trying to get a book through an auction when I can just buy it now. Because, of course, in investing, time is money. And so if I can take the time that I would have spent in going through 5 or 10 auctions and instead buy more books that I can then list, well, I can actually end up making more money in the end. Plus, my time is just valuable for me. Time is the one resource you can't make more of. I can always make more money. I can't make more time. And especially as a husband and a father, I want to spend all that time wisely. And I'm also the type of person who doesn't want to be on the emotional roller coaster. Because, of course, like I said, it feels great when you win an auction, but it feels terrible when you lose one, especially when there's a book that you really were wanting and you thought you were going to get, and someone snipes it at the end. Man, those feel bads are just too much for me. And so I stay away to save my emotional energy. But it's that same emotional energy that actually can create a danger with auctions because once you've bid on an item, you really want it. And then if somebody else bids on it, all of a sudden you're in this competition and you really want to win. And so you may have thought, oh, I'm only going to bid $40 on it. But then somebody puts in 41. You're like, well, yeah, what's 42? It's not that much more. And all of a sudden you get in this bidding war and you spend way more than you meant to. And so auctions can actually be pretty dangerous unless you have really good impulse control. Furthermore, what I found is that you can actually find great deals through buy it now listings if you put yourself on the listing's watch list. Because as you might know, once you put yourself on the watch list, a seller can then send you an offer that is often lower than what you could have gotten that book for through an auction. And I've had this happen several times. because sellers are motivated to sell their books. And if it's been sitting for a while and all of a sudden they get a watcher, they're like, hey, man, I'll just shoot an offer there. And I've been able to get some great deals that way. And again, sometimes under the value that that book would have gone for in an auction. And this just happened this past week. I put myself on the watch list for A Werewolf by Night number 32. It's a book that I've been wanting to add to my collection. And then a couple of days later, the seller sent out an awesome offer. But as you might know, when a seller sends out that offer, it goes to everyone on the watch list. And it was such a good one that it was accepted by another buyer like within a minute. Like I got the notification, I went and looked at it, and also it's like, it's gone. It's no longer listed. The dude bought it. And so I'm certain that seller could have gotten more money out of that book if he'd put it up for an auction, because that guy snatched it up so quick, he certainly would have been willing to pay a little bit more. So the watch list can lead to a lot of great deals, especially because you also have the chance to counter offer whatever offer is sent to you. And so again, when a seller sends you an offer, they're motivated to sell. And so you get this offer and you can think, well, I bet this guy would let it go for a little bit cheaper. And often when you send that counter offer, lo and behold, he accepts the lower deal. I know for me as a seller, whenever I list a book and send an offer, if you offered me a few less dollars for it, then almost always I'm going to accept it. You'd be surprised at how many people just accept whatever offer the seller sends to them. I've gotten a lot more money from buyers than I thought I would by that. I was like, well, I'll send this money and they'll probably ask for $10 less and then I'll accept that or whatever. But no, they just accept it. So if a seller sends you an offer, realize that they're motivated to sell and you might be able to get it for a better price. And another way that you can get a buy it now listing for a better price is if you directly message the seller and say, hey, I'm interested in this book. Here's what I can offer. What do you think about it? And often they're willing to negotiate with you. And me personally, the thrills that people often get from the auctions, I get from the negotiation, kind of going back and forth. And I enjoy kind of actually getting to interact with someone versus just like, putting in numbers. That's something that I like. So it's another reason I'm drawn to buy it now listings. But in that negotiation, again, you can get a book for a good deal. But I'm curious, what type of listing do you prefer when you're buying? Do you like the thrills and the excitement that comes with auctions and the potential sometimes to get real steals? I mean, auctions are the place where you can find like crazy steals if nobody ends up bidding on this book other than you. Or are you like me? You don't really want to deal with the emotional roller coaster of auctions, and you found ways to still get great deals with buy it now listings, and maybe you also just enjoy the negotiation process like I do. So tell me in the comments what you think. Well, that's going to bring us to an end of this video. Of course, if you haven't subscribed, I'd appreciate if you'd consider doing so. We are so close to getting to 500 subscribers, and when we do, I'll be giving away 5 copies of Spider-Woman #1. All you have to do to get an entry into the drawing for the first copy is to leave a comment on this video, and all you have to do is subscribe to get an entry to the drawing for the second copy, and I'll leave a link to a video below in the description where you can find out how you can win the other 3 copies. All right. Well, please like, subscribe, comment, all those things that help our channel out. I hope you enjoyed this video. And as always, I look forward to the next one.